Hello everyone, and welcome to Drumming 101, the beginning and then some. I will be your personal guide and host on this video. For those of you who don't know who I am Kenneth Bam Alexander, the drummer who played live drums on the hit single, Show Me What You Got. And for those of you who don't know what that song is, don't worry about it. Just giving you a little background about myself. On this video, we will cover a vast variety of things, from holding the drumsticks to playing in pocket. And for those of you who don't know what pocket is, I'll define it later. Other things we're going to cover are rudiments, posture, sitting on a drum stool, foot positioning on your foot pedal and your hi-hat pedal, rudiments, and how to contribute rudiments in a drum set. Because a lot of people don't know and don't realize how to convert from playing one drum and playing your rudiments in a marching band on one drum to playing on a drum set. So we're gonna go over those things, grooves, and I might teach you some licks here or there, all right? A little about myself. Once again, I said my name is Kenneth Bam Alexander, for those of you who weren't listening earlier. And I've been playing the drums since I was 2 years old. I had my first job playing for a church, actually when I was 5 years old, getting paid to play the drums for a church. So as a young drummer growing up, I really didn't have things as accessible as the internet or drum instructional videos like we're doing right now, which I am privileged to do. So how I learned was watching other drummers in church or watching videos of performances from different various artists, both secular and gospel. I also learned from listening to albums, records, CDs, tapes, DVDs. Anyways, so at the end of the day, I'm going to show you step by step and even overhead how to play the drums by ear. Now, before we get started with my first point, I have to share with you the importance of your job as a drummer. The importance of you being in a band or a part of a song is to play a steady beat and consistent beat. A steady and consistent beat. We put those things together. And actually to be the pulse or to carry the tempo of a song. So in both instances, you have to be steady and consistent in playing a beat and being the tempo maker of the song. Each one of these drums are important within itself. Every drum has a different tone and has a different importance to playing in a drum. This is, for example, the biggest thing right now, right here. This is the bass drum, all right? And that carries the lows of your beat. This direct thing in front of me right here that I'm touching, this is your snare drum. That carries the high, or both the bass drum and the snare drum carries and drives every beat that you play. This is the hi-hat. This hi-hat also carries the tempo, and it assists in carrying the tempo with the bass drum and the snare. These toms right here, these are called tom-toms. This is actually called a floor tom right here. But these are called rack toms. Toms provide variety in licks, all right? These are actually cymbals, different cymbals. These two are actually crashes. This is a splash. This is a ride cymbal, and this is a China crash. Cymbals are used to put an exclamation point after you've done a lick or trick. That's the drum set in a nutshell. My first point of the day is how to hold these right here. These are called drumsticks. The drumsticks that I'm using right now are Vader Power 5Bs. Drumsticks vary in sizes. The larger the number, the lighter the drumsticks. These are 5Bs, so they're right in the middle. Before these come 2Bs. After these come 7As or 8As, and those are the lighter sticks for your jazz usage. The 2Bs are mostly for heavy metal or rock. So it assists you in hitting harder and playing a lot louder than normal. 5Bs for me are what does it. They're right in the middle of light and heavy, so they're medium. The first thing you need to learn about holding a drumstick, if you're not playing traditional style, is these two fingers carry the grip. Those two fingers are what you actually, these two fingers, your index finger, your middle finger, and your thumb, are what you actually grip the drumstick with. So what you need to do is you need to put the drumsticks between the first slot of those two fingers, like so. And put your thumb on top and just wrap your other two fingers around it. Some of you may need to choke up a little bit. If you don't know what choke up, it's a baseball term, meaning that you have to grab the stick a little bit further because you have to have some of your stick still sticking out. You can't cover the stick totally because you won't really have control over it. So you have to choke up just a little bit so that you have full control over your drumstick. Now please, 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 please do not grab the stick with your whole hand like this. Please do not grab the stick like this, like it's a finger sandwich, okay? Please do not, because you won't have full control over the stick. When you're playing, you have to play with your hands turned, actually turned over. Not like this, not like this, not like this, but turned over, because it gives you full access to using your wrist. That's a very important factor in drumming. You must use your wrist. You can't use your arm. You can't wave your arms. You have to use your wrist. Very important factor. The next positioning that you need to learn, very, very important, is holding a drumstick when you're doing a rim shot. This is what is called a rim shot. It's not hitting the drum directly. It's actually when your stick, the sound that your stick makes when it hits the rim of your snare drum. This is the rim of your snare drum. This is the drum head. This is the rim of your snare drum. And you use a rim shot when you're playing a lot of ballads, or actually when you're playing any up-tempo song, but you're breaking down so that certain maybe verses or bridge may be heard clearly. What you're gonna do is you're gonna grip your drumstick almost as if you're pinching your drumstick with your index finger and your middle finger. And all you do is lift up your wrist and then let it down. Lift it up, let it down. Lift it up, let it down. Now, depending on how far or how close your hand is to the rim is the different sounds that you'll get. If your hand is really far from the rim, kind of towards the middle of the snare, then you'll get kind of flat sound, not really tonal, if you would say. If you get it closer, kind of low sound. So what you want to do is you would want to position your drumstick to hit the rim right before the wording of your drumstick. It gives it a loud, crisp rim shot. So now that you've learned how to play a proper rim shot, I'm going to give you an example of that, all right? So basically, like I said before, I'm reiterating, Your grip is with your index finger and your thumb, all right? And you lay the 3 remaining fingers on the snare head, all right? So, an example of that may be and I'm gonna get to the toms to get variety and put an exclamation point, and I've completed a sentence. So that wraps up your finger positioning and your hand positioning on how to hold drumsticks. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, my next point in playing the drums is your posture on your drum seat. Yeah, the drum seat is what you just heard kind of squeaking a little bit in the background. But the first thing you need to learn about your posture is you have to place your seat where you're sitting over your drum set. That's very important because if you place it too low, you won't be able to hit certain you won't be able to hit certain drums with clarity. You'll be hitting rims. And in return, it really messes up your sticks, your drumsticks. So if you position your drum seat a little high, not too high, but just enough so that you can sit over your drum set so you can hit every single drum with clarity. So you can hear the clear tone of every single drum, okay? So I'm sitting over the drum set, and actually, when you sit on the drum set, after you've positioned yourself over your drum set, reiterating that point again, you have to sit upright, sort of arching your back a little bit to be kind of not politically correct. You kind of stick your booty out, for those of you who know what that means. But you're arching your back, you're sitting over your drum set. You don't want to be too stiff, though. You don't want to be... You want to still be loose, but you want to sit upright, sit over your drum set, arch your back. You don't want to slump or slouch. It's bad for your back. It's bad positioning. Then you'll have to see a chiropractor later on in life. All right? And that's basically the wrap up of your sit positioning on your drum stool. All right, welcome back to Drumming 101, the beginning and then some. If you've been watching the video, you've went over the first point of holding the drumstick and your posture sitting up on your drum seat. The next point we're going to do is your actual foot positioning on your foot pedal and your hi-hat. The first thing you have to learn when positioning your foot on the foot pedal is that you must play on the ball of your foot. You must play. Playing on the ball of your foot is basically with your heel off of the foot pedal. It gives you a more precise beat on the drum, on the bass drum. It gives you a very strong and precise beat as such. If you play with your heel down on the bass drum, your beat is less effective. Playing on your ball of your foot. Playing with your heel down. It's less effective. The next foot positioning that I'm going to show you is your foot positioning on your hi-hat pedal. Now, your hi-hat pedal, you have either choice of playing on the ball of your foot, or you can play flat-footed with your heel down. The key to a hi-hat is to accent certain off notes or off timing notes in drum playing. So when you accent certain notes, all you're doing is letting your foot up to open the hi-hat themselves and closing. Letting it up and closing. Letting it up once again and closing. Like so. Let me give you an example, all right? That basically wraps up your feet positioning on both pedals, your hi-hat and your foot pedal. The very next thing that I'm going to be teaching you about is basic rhythm and counting, which is very important in drum playing because you have to know how to count and you have to know how to keep your rhythm. Every mainstream beat is a 4/4 beat. 4 on the bottom, all right? 4 on top, okay? The 4 on the bottom, that's not a 4, but I just drew it a little bit. But the 4 on the bottom is represented by a quarter note, all right? And there are 4 quarters in a whole. 4 quarters in a dollar, 4 quarters of a pie in a whole if you cut it in fours, all right? That's why there are 4 beats per measure. And we count that as such. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. Now, notice that we're counting every quarter note, but each first number is growing. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and so on, et cetera, et cetera. So every time you reach that 4th note and you go back to 1, your count increases. For example, like I just did, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4. Okay? Now, the next thing we have to learn is an 8th note. Now, an 8th note is half of a quarter note. So it takes 2 8th notes to make 1 quarter note. And we would count that as, in saying 1, 2, 3, 4, we say 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Because it takes 2 8th notes to equal 1 quarter note. So where you would have 4 beats per measure, if you would have all 8 notes in that one measure, you would have 8 beats per measure. All right? Because 2, once again, 2, that is 2. 1, 2. These 2 fingers, you see this right here? 2 of the 8th notes are combined to make 1 quarter note. And we would count it like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. All right? And counting, you would do the same, progressing after you get to the 1 of after every bar, after every measure, I should say. The next one we're going to learn is the 16th note. Now it takes 4 16th notes to make 1 quarter note. And the 16th note is half of an 8th note. I know it may seem a little confusing right now, but just know it takes 4 16th notes to equal 1 quarter note. And we would count it, instead of saying 1 and, or 1 as in eighth or quarter, we would say 1 E and a, 2 E and a. So we would count it like this. 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a. Okay? Now, notice Every time I say a specific number, like 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm accenting those numbers. Because in 8th or 16th notes, the uhs or ands or e's or B, C, E, F, G, F, H, I, J, K. But those are ghost notes. Those are what are called ghost notes, okay? So we're actually accenting the quarter note. The difference between a ghost note and the accented note is the attack is a lot harder than the other notes that you play. For example, 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and all right? All right. Just to recap on things, most beats that you might play are in 4/4 time, but there are a lot of other beats that you would play, maybe 3/4, 6/8, or 5/4 or 7/8, where the timing may be a lot more extraculent or a lot more maybe confusing to you right now but I don't want to confuse you. So what we're going to focus on right now is we're focusing on just the regular 4/4 time, in which every quarter note equals 1 beat. And the 8th note is double the quarter note. So that means it takes 2 8th notes to equal 1 quarter note. And the 16th note is double the 8th note. So it takes 2 of the 16th to make the 8th and 4 of the 16th to make a quarter note. I don't want to confuse you, but rewind the tape if you have to later on, or you can do it right now if you want to. Every quarter note equals 1 beat. And the 8th note is double the quarter note. So that means it takes 2 8th notes to equal 1 quarter note. And the 16th note is double the 8th note. So it takes 2 of the 16th to make the 8th and 4 of the 16th to make a quarter note. All right, so now we're going to move on to the next point. Thank you very much. All right, everyone, welcome back. The next thing we're going to learn is we're getting ready to get hands-on right now. Enough talking. I've talked you to death right about now. So right now I'll get to show you the very next thing that you must learn in playing the drums, which is learning your rudiments. Now I'm going to give you just basic rudiments to learn. There are a great number of rudiments that you might be able to, and there's some books that you might be able to pick up with a lot of rudiments to show you every single rudiment there is. I'm going to show you the basic rudiments. Now rudiments are hand stick exercises, okay? Like I said, we're going to get hands-on. All right, we're going to actually go to the drum set. You're going to actually get to hear some of these things because I'm going to give you examples after examples after examples. All right, the first rudiment that you need to learn is the single stroke roll. Now the single stroke roll is constituted as this. All it is an alternation between your left and your right hand, hitting 1 beat at a time, okay? So let's recap a little bit. Like we said, we're gonna play in 4/4 time. Every quarter note gets 1 beat. So in a single stroke roll, every hand gets 1 individual beat, left and right. Right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left. All right, once again, I'll do it again. Right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left. Notice I'm holding the drumstick as I instructed you in holding the drumsticks, the point that I made earlier. Like such. My hands are turned over. And all I'm doing is lifting my wrist and placing it down to stroke the drum. Lifting wrist, placing, like I showed you earlier, the importance of using your wrist. All right? So once again, single stroke roll, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left. The next rudiment is a double stroke roll. Now the double stroke roll is each hand gets 2 beats at a time. All right? For example, let me show you. Right, right, left, left, right, right, left, left. Once again, let me show you again. Right, right, left, left, right, right, left, left. Okay? Once again, we're turning our hands over, holding the stick right, making sure everything is correct. Hands are turned over, lifting your wrist, not your arms. All right? Now, don't be afraid in the beginning when you're first learning these rudiments. You're not going to be able to do it very fast. You won't be able to do it as clear as you might hear it on this tape. In the beginning, what you need to do is to make sure that you're doing it correct. That's all I care about right now. So the correct way is with your hands turned over, reiterating again with your wrist, and you're playing. Single stroke roll. And every time you do it, you can progress and get a little faster. But you have to make sure that your hands stay in the same position. All right? For example. All right? Let's go over the double stroke roll. The next rudiment that you're going to learn is the 5-stroke roll. In a 5-stroke roll, your right hand gets 2 beats, your left hand gets 2 beats, and then when you go right back to the right hand, instead of giving it 2 beats, you give it 1. For example, I know it sounds a little confusing. I'm going to show you. All right? Right, right, left, left, right. Then you alternate. Left, left, right, right, left. Okay? Once again, let me show you. Right, right, left, left, right. Left, left, right, right, left. Okay? That's called a 5-stroke roll. So, once again, we're reiterating, having your hands turned over, using your wrist, holding the stick correctly. All right. That is the 5-stroke roll. The next rudiment you're going to learn is a paradiddle. Now, a paradiddle is used in a lot of phrasings in drum playing, all right? A paradiddle is almost the same kind of format as a 5-stroke roll. Your hands are trading off, okay? And you're alternating. So, the pattern of a paradiddle is right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left. Let me say it again. Right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left. Just in case I didn't mention before, when I say right or left, I mean your right hand or your left hand. So the pattern, once again, of a paradiddle is right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left. Let me play that for you right now. I'll give you an example. Okay? Let me play it one more time. And of course, you can practice that faster, or you can progress as you get further along in practicing your rudiments. And that is a paradiddle. The next thing you ought to learn is a flam. Now, a flam is a little difficult. It may be a little difficult at first for you to do. A flam is where you're playing both of your hands get one beat, but actually one hand comes down a little faster or a half a second before the other one. Let me give you an example. It's almost as if you're playing them together, but one hand comes down and hits the drum a little faster or before or half a second before the other hand. Depending on what hand you are, right-handed or left-handed, a lot of the times, I'm right-handed myself, so my right hand would come down a little faster than my left in the flam, okay? For you that are left-handed, your left-handed may come down faster than your right. It's almost as if one hand is echoing the other hand, and that's a flam, all right? So we just went over a flam. Now, to reiterate or recap on things, we went over the single stroke roll. We went over the double stroke roll. We went over the 5-stroke roll. And we went over the paradiddle. And we just went over the flam. The last rudiment that I'm going to teach you is called a flam tap. Now, the flam tap sounds exactly like what it is. It's a flam, and then one hand gets an extra beat after you do the flam. For example, let me show you. Now, in flam taps, you can alternate between the right and your left hand, all right? So you do flam right, flam left, flam right, flam left. Let me show you. All right, just kidding around a little bit, but that's the basics of your rudiments. That's the basics of your flam taps, your flams, your paradiddles, your double stroke rolls, your 5-stroke rolls, and your single stroke rolls. We've wrapped up the rudiments. Let's move on. All right, so now that you've gotten your rudiments, and I've taught you your rudiments, and you've gone over it 1,000,002 times, and you've practiced it, and you've progressed in speeds and dimension and defining and clarity, now I'm going to show you some examples of using your rudiments in, just some minor grooves, stuff like that. I'm going to play a small little groove. First thing I'm going to use is the single stroke groove. Now, if you noticed, I kind of did 2 in 1. I started off with a single stroke roll, and I ended off with a flam. So it sounds like this. Single stroke roll and flam. That's a perfect example of both in one element. Okay, the next thing is the double stroke roll. I can do it in the same groove. same kind of format. Instead of doing, I did a double stroke roll. All right? And then there's the 5-stroke roll. And in the 5-stroke roll, you can probably contribute that in some traditional down-home 2-3 beat or 3-4 beat, kind of a waltzy kind of feel. Usually played in the traditional beat. I'll talk about that later and explain the different grooves and beats and stuff like that. But for an example, I'm going to show you right now. Okay. So a paradiddle can actually be defined in a beat within itself. You can actually put it in a regular 4/4 groove, all right? Almost as if you're doing a single stroke roll or your double stroke roll. I'm gonna put it in the same groove I did earlier. 1, 2. Next is a flam tap. Actually, a flam tap, you could actually do a flam tap in most common churches in a shot beat. Let me show you, for example. All right. So there you have examples of where to contribute or how to contribute your rudiments that I've taught you into a groove or a beat per se. All right, moving on. Okay, folks, the next thing that we're going to go over is independence. Now, independence is defined as every limb or body part that you use in playing the drums, your left hand, your right foot, your left foot, they're all doing different patterns, okay? And that's the introduction to actually playing grooves or beats, okay? Now, we're gonna use some reiteration in saying that we're going to play a regular standard 4/4 beat. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you can rewind and go back to rhythms and counting. But we're going to start off with a regular 4/4 beat. Okay? So, the first thing we're going to play is the hi-hat. All right? And the hi-hat, usually in every standard groove, keeps the actual pulse of every single beat. It hits every single beat. You count it as such. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. All right? Now, the next thing you're going to do is you're going to play your left hand with your snare. Basic concept of playing drums. Okay? Now you're going to hit your snare on every 2 and 4 beat. So every time you say 2 and 4, you're going to hit the snare. Perfect example. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. All right. So the next thing we're going to do, we're going to practice the hi-hat and the foot pedal. Now the foot pedal hits on every 1 and every 3. So every time you say 1 and 3, you hit the foot pedal. All right? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay? Now for right now, you would probably just need to practice either of the two separately, because once we put it all together, it may seem a little confusing. But you can rewind the tape and see how exactly I put those two things together. Right now what we're going to do is we're going to put all three things together. All right? So we're going to just start off with the hi-hat. 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. And we're going to bring in the bass drum. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Then we're going to bring in the snare. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. All right? So basically, in playing a standard 4/4 groove, every limb of your body has a separate beat or a separate individuality about itself. Your right hand, which is on the hi-hat, if you're right-handed, plays every single note, every single quarter note in every beat, right? Your foot only plays on 1 and 3. Now the left hand, which is normally played on the snare if you're right-handed, plays only on 2 and 4. Now let me give you an example of it again, just in case you want to hear it again. I'll give you another, or the same example. Starting off with the hi-hat. Come in with the bass drum. And coming in with the snare. Okay? Now, in independence, you still have your left foot left. Now, like I said before, in teaching you your foot placement on your hi-hat, your left foot is, your hi-hat in raising up and coming down is to accent certain things on the hi-hat as such. Now, when you contribute the hi-hat, your left foot, into the beat, your hi-hat pattern sort of changes a little bit because you go from hitting a quarter note to hitting maybe 1 or 2 eighth notes. Let me give you an example. I don't want to confuse you. I'm sorry if I'm confusing you. I'm trying to be as explanatory as I possibly can right now. But let me give you an example. All right? So basically what I did is, if you're counting with me, I said 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1. Using the first maybe 4 beats, or no, first 3 beats, I'm sorry, as your main quarter note. And on the 4th, you hit 4 and. So you put an eighth note in there to accent on your hi-hat. One more point while we're on independence, just to reiterate some things. Maybe you're clumsy or uncoordinated or a little rhythmically challenged. I know some of you out there. But when you're doing your independent beat, you would probably want to start off, like I said earlier, with just the hi-hat and then bring the bass in. Then once you get comfortable with doing the hi-hat and the bass, then you want to bring in the snare. Or you could alternate. You could start off with the hi-hat, bring the snare in, just do the hi-hat and the snare. Or you can start off with the hi-hat, bring the bass in, do the hi-hat and the bass. Or you can just start off with the bass and the snare. Let me give you an example. The first one I was telling you is starting off with the hi-hat and coming in with the bass. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. The next one is the hi-hat and snare. Okay? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay? Or, like I said, you can just do the snare and the bass. All right? So you start off by counting off without hitting the hi-hat. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right? So just in case you have those particular issues, it's okay. It's all right. Not everyone is going to get it at the same tempo or at the same pace or at the same speed. And everyone's learning process is different. So for those of you who are rhythmically challenged, you might want to start off a piece at a time, maybe 2 at a time. And depending on which 2 you start off with, then try to gradually add the 3rd piece. And then as you add the 3rd piece and get more comfortable in adding all 3 pieces, then you can come in and add in the accent on the hi-hat. So now what we're going to do is we're going to play a basic groove for the beginner learner. Right now we're just going to play a basic straight ahead 4/4 groove. And I'm going to add here and there some 8th notes or maybe some 16th notes. Everything is basically going to be quarter note driven on this groove. So let me just get into it. The basic straight ahead 4/4 groove. Now notice that before I started doing the quarter notes on the hi-hat, I was doing 8th notes. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. All right? And you actually do some 16th notes on the hi-hat by using both of your hands. Let me show you an example. One and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 5 and a 6, and so on and so on, and etc. etc. Back to the straight ahead. Now what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to add an 8th note to the 3rd beat of the measure. 1, 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1, 2. Notice that I'm doing the 8th notes on the hi-hat, and that wasn't an 8th note, but now I'm going to just alternate between the 8th on the foot pedal. Now what I just did is instead of hitting the 1 and the and of the 8th note, I'm just hitting the and. So instead of hitting 1 and 3, 1 and 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2, 3, I'm just hitting the and. So let me demonstrate it one more time. Now what you can do is you can alternate. You can alternate between just hitting the and of the eighth note and hitting the one and the and of the eighth note. Let me show you. And now what I'm gonna try to do is, I think I have a little magic in my hands, just a little bit. I'm gonna try to show you a constant picture of my bass drum and actually what I'm doing around the drum set right about now. Hold on, let me, picture please. Thank you. Now, like I was saying, we're going to play a constant 4/4 groove, and we're going to alternate between different bass patterns or different hi-hat patterns, and then eventually we're going to show you some licks to put in this groove, all right? I'm going to show you a groove that actually involves the 16th note in the bass pedal, but you're not playing every 16th note, okay? Now, remember when we were talking earlier, and I shared with you that when we count the 16th note, we're counting 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, okay? What we're gonna do is, if you count slow, I'm gonna go slow, I'm gonna go step by step, but if you count slow and only hit the bass drum on 1 and 1, 2, 3, if you count 1 E and 2 E and only hit the bass drum on the instead of the and look what we can come up with, all right? 1 E and 2 E and 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 E and E and So if you speed that up, it'll sound like this. All right? So, let me teach you a little trick that I do on the hi-hat when I don't actually know what it's called. Actually, we're going to name it right now. Let's call it a tricklet. Yeah. All right. A tricklet off the hi-hat, where you're playing the hi-hat with this hand, and occasionally you play a ghost note right before you hit the snare, like this, with your left hand. So when I was just playing the beat, you can either play it kind of swingish, or you can play straight ahead. So once again, we just named it today. Today it shall be named a tricklet. All right, off the snare with your left hand on the hi-hat. Okay? It's a little trick. You may hear me, actually you will hear me play that a lot while we're playing grooves. And it's just something extra to keep time, or something extra to assist, you know, the timekeeping, or a little accessory of some sort with playing a groove, all right? Okay, folks, what we're gonna do is we're gonna continue with the 16th note groove. still playing the bass drum on the of the one E and but what we're gonna do is we're also gonna play the bass note on the of 2 and come in on 3. Sounds a little confusing. It's not. I'm gonna just give you an example. I'm gonna just start with the hi-hat and the bass drum. 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and. Okay? So all it is you're consistently playing the bass drum on the of 1, but after you count 2, you hit the bass drum on the of 2, and you hit the bass drum on the count 3. All right? Let me show you one more time with just the hi-hat and the bass drum. 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and all right? So let me play it with the groove. 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and all right? So if you speed that up, it'll sound like. So now that I've showed you the 4/4 straight ahead 4/4 groove, I just said that twice. I know I did, and I did it on purpose. Amen. Thanks. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you one minor lick, and I'm going to actually take it from something that my cousin taught me. His name is Jamie Gamble, by the way. Thank you very much, James. But it's called barbecue. It sounds a little weird, I know. You're sitting at home on a Sunday evening and you bring the grill out and you bring out some chicken and you put it on the grill and you put barbecue sauce. No, that's not what I'm talking about, okay? Thanks. But what I'm talking about is actually it's the sound of what you're doing, okay? So all barbecue is you hit one with the right, one with the left, one on the first time, and you hit one on the cymbal. So, once again, what I'm going to teach you is called barbecue. And there are different variations, chop barbecue or chop barbecue, and I'm going to go over those things as well. But the main foundation is the barbecue. And all you're doing is one with the right, one with the left, and one on the tom. And then you're ending it on the exclamation point by hitting the cymbal and the bass drum at the same time. So this is barbecue. I'm gonna say it with it, okay? Barbecue, barbecue, barbecue. Okay? So if you're playing a groove, let me give you an example. Well, one hand is coming down faster and hitting the drum faster than the other hand. Now, the first chop is a flam, and then you do chop barbecue. Let me give you an example. Chop, barbecue. Chop, pop, barbecue. Chop, chop, barbecue. Chop, chop, barbecue. Chop, chop, barbecue. So let me give you an example in the groove. every time you do it, you put the exclamation point on it by hitting the cymbal and the bass drum at the same time. So once more, I'm going to give you barbecue, chop barbecue, and chop chop barbecue. And every single time you put the exclamation point by hitting the cymbal and the bass drum at the same time. One more time. 1, 2, 3, 4. Barbecue. Chop barbecue. Chop chop barbecue. Thank you so much for getting this course. I hope I've been a great help to you. Once again, this is for the beginners. These are instructions that are only for the beginners, those people that are just learning how to play the drums, basically. Once again, I want to recap. I've taught you how to hold the stick. I've taught you your posture, your foot positionings. I've given you some rudiments. So please practice, practice, practice. Take this seriously. If this is really what you want to do, please take the time to practice and take about 30 minutes a day. You don't even have to own a drum set. You can get a practice pad and practice your rudiments. You can get a practice pad or you can be sitting at home watching American Idol. I would appreciate if I was someone that was just learning a course like this, and I am appreciative just to be able to be in this seat to be able to teach you everything that I've learned over the years. So please take this seriously. I hope you've enjoyed this course. Thank you so much for tuning in to Hear and Play Drums 101, Basics and Fundamentals. I hope I've been a blessing to you. And as Jermaine always says, if you can hear it, you can play it.